We're losing signal, folks. We're losing signals. Let's see if we can keep some signal before we start this quick history lesson. All right, I think we'll be all right. I hope so. Quick history lesson for you all. So, when I'm holding my selfie stick in my hand, so that's why I'm moving this thing around. You know, I'm not these young folks no more. I'm 38 going on 83. Trying to figure this thing out. All right. All right, let's go ahead and continue. So when we talk about slavery in America, right? Most people imagine resistance as something loud. They imagine revolts, uprising, escapes under the cover of night, right? Those things happen, yes, but not everyone could pick up and just run. Not everyone could fight with weapons. Now, for enslaved women, resistance often it just looked different. It wasn't always fire and gunpowder, Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was in the way they raised their children, the way that they taught, or the way that they carried culture forward when everything was designed naturally or intended to try to erase it all, just like they're trying to erase it now. So we'll start off first with just talking about motherhood. Under slavery, women were not allowed to control their own families. Children could be sold away at any moment, yet Black mothers, they resisted by loving fiercely. They rocked their babies to sleep with songs rooted in African rhythms, and they would also whisper stories about ancestors, planting seeds of identity even in the hardest and in the harshest soil, under the most extreme pressure, and a lot of times under a lot of sun, a lot of sun, a lot of heat, and a lot of pressure. Some mothers taught their children survival skills in code because if the overseers, if they knew that you were teaching your children certain things or how to be smart, they'll make sure that they get rid of you. They didn't want any type of Negroes at all to get ahead of themselves. They didn't want no woke Negro. You understand? So mothers would hide certain things and teach their kids certain codes and secrets and how to keep secrets, how to trust, but only wisely. Other mothers, especially Black enslaved women, okay, they risk a lot of brutal punishment to sneak extra food to their little ones, to make sure that they lived another day. Because in a world designed to destroy Black families, simply keeping love alive wasn't an act of defiance. Now think about teaching for just one moment. Laws in many states made it a crime to teach enslaved people to read or write. But women taught anyway. A mother might trace letters in the dirt with a stick, whatever it was, to teach how to shape a certain form of freedom, but through literature, through learning, something that we had to keep secret from the overseers. Because remember, if they find out, they don't want no woke Negro, you'll be hanging somewhere tomorrow. Or you'd be sold off to another overseer, somebody worse, who's going to whip you even more. A grandma might pass down Bible verses to the children, recited in whispers after it was nighttime. Literacy was more than just knowledge, it was power. To read, it meant that you could read a pass, a map, a letter. To teach was to fight back against the system, right? That said that you should never think for yourself. That's how they're trying to do it now. That's why it's so important to learn your history so you can put the connections together and see how history is repeating itself right now. Modern day slavery, it's happening right now. It's just that right now it's happening with a social security number instead of with chains and a chain around our neck and a chain around our feet. Because remember, we're like cattle. That's why they call it chattel slavery. That's what, like cattle. Just that now that they can't chain us up, they put a social security number on us. It was no different. We still second-class citizens according to the Constitution. Right now, 2025. Anyway, so then there was culture. Slaveholders wanted to strip away African roots, but women carried culture in everything that they did. In the food, they turned scraps into soul-creating dishes. That's why you see Black folks eat cornbread, collard greens, and different type of rice and stews. It fed the body and it fed the spirit, but it was the only thing that the white folks gave to us. While they ate the good part of the meat, they gave us the scraps. That's why you'll see black folks eat chitlin. It's not about if black people eat chicken, watermelon, or chitlins, or cornbread, or greens. It's the history behind why. It's the history behind why. Okay? And how it filled the body and spirit. Now, music, as black folks, turned pain into rhythm, layering coded messages into spirituals that guided people toward freedom. In medicine, women gathered herbs and roots, healing their communities with knowledge passed down across generations, even in clothing. Women braided patterns into hair that some say mapped out escape routes. Shoot, for all we know, Harriet Tubman could have had a map drawn out in some braids in the back of her hair, and everybody thought that her hair was out in the front. Now, these acts, they didn't make the headlines the way rebellions did, but they were just as powerful. They kept families connected. They gave children a sense of who they were. They preserved African identity in the face of slavery's violence. Again, I repeat, we are in modern day slavery. Slavery has not ended. The wound has not been cleansed. The wound was just covered up with a Band-Aid, and now the wound is revealing itself again. It's bleeding its blood of racism onto everyone. But listen to this, every lesson and every song, every recipe that our ancestors did was a quiet way of saying, we are still here. You will not erase us. That's why I'm still here on your screen, because I'm one of those Negroes that you shall not erase that easy. You have to stand up for your ancestors. They went through too much, and we can never really walk in their shoes. We probably wouldn't even last a day, especially the way our bodies are conditioned now. Okay? So when we talk about resistance, we must remember it wasn't always on the battlefield. For enslaved women in the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries, resistance lived in daily choices that they made to protect, to teach, to preserve. That was rebellion in its own right. Okay? Our ancestors' legacy is still with us today, right now. The food that we eat, the songs that we sing, the stories passed down in black families, all of it carries traces of those women who refused to let their people's spirit die. And I'll be damned if a nigga call me lazy. Because that's what's happening now in America. Because we got brothers and sisters, instead of picking up a book, they picking up TikTok. They picking up Facebook. They picking up YouTube. YouTube to them is more important than picking up a book to learn about their history. And so when people down talk them and tell them, well, you go pick cotton, they just get mad about it, but they don't understand what's behind that. They got to understand the ignorance of where that commentary comes from. These people weren't born by themselves. They have family members. They have fathers and grandmothers and granddaddies who have came down along the line to teach them these ways of thinking. This is the reason why when they come out of their mouth and say you need to go back and pick cotton again, you have to pray for those people. They're just ignorant. They have no idea what they say. They have no idea what they say. This is what they were taught because the wound was covered with a Band-Aid. It was never fixed. It was never fixed. It was never completely clean and completely fixed and bandaged up to where it can cure. The wound was left open. And so that's the reason why you see people say ignorant things, and you got to have more people like me that say, I'm not worried about what you're talking about. You don't know your history. And if you do know your history and you still believe this way in 2025, you just assure me a little bit more that you and many others have not cleansed that wound. That's why it's so important for folks to continue to learn the history. Whether or not you're white, blue, Latino, Native American, wherever you come from, it's important for you to learn your history. So then that way you could do the comparison of why we stand where we stand, us as the people. Why we even are together, why we are able to even drink water together at the same fountain. You must know your history for over 60 years ago. You must know your history in order to know why now we can go into the same store together. Why now us as mixed couples can be together. You have to know your history. You must not let it pass by, especially us as brothers and sisters. Black brothers and sisters, our ancestors didn't suffer for no reason. Our ancestors wanted to read a book any time of the day, but they couldn't. They had to wait till nighttime and maybe sneak in a couple pieces of paper, and everybody had to teach each other a couple letters in order for us to succeed. So now when we have libraries and we're able to read, us brothers and sisters need to be at the library all day long, like James Baldwin. We need to be in the library all day long, reading as many books as we can or bringing them home to our home. And we need to read. We need to indulge in reading. Very important. And most of all, reading our history. Again, our ancestors, their legacy is with us today. Everything that we sing, the stories we pass down, all of it. It all traces back to those women who refused to let their people spirit die. That is what you call quiet acts of defiance. That is how enslaved rebellion. Thank you all for tuning in. I thank you all. I hope you did learn something here. And if you did, make sure that you subscribe. You may not like every episode, but you might like one, and that might change your life, and that's good enough for me. Thank you all for being here. Have a beautiful and blessed day. I am out of here.